Okay, welcome to the latest episode of Eric's Perspective. Joining me today is the legendary and extremely talented artist, Artis Lane. Artis, thank you so much for joining us. It's an extreme honor and privilege to have you as a guest on the podcast.
This is exciting. I love to be here at 94 years of age, and I'm still being interviewed.
Oh my goodness! And when you say that, I'm looking at you. You don't look at all like someone you would expect to look at 94. You look beautiful as always.
Thank you. Beauty is as beauty does, my mother used to say to all us daughters who got too many compliments when we were teenagers and competing with the American guys because we were Canadian.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to just for the viewers and the listeners. First of all, let me just say to the viewers and the listeners that I'm in my gallery in Fullerton, and Artis is in her studio in Michigan. So, with that said, but Artis, I was just wondering if you could just start us off by talking about that being born in Canada, and if you could just sort of give us a little brief history like that, starting there, if you don't mind.
Well, my family centuries back came out of Philadelphia to Canada at a time when Canadians were trying to get many people into their dominion, Canada. And so that I have historical figures in my family. Abraham Shadd, his daughter Marianne Shadd Carey, was the first woman publisher of a newspaper called the Provincial Freeman. And it went down from Canada to let people trying to get in out of the slavery situation into Canada. And she has a whole history. I was commissioned to do her sculpture of her.
Uh-huh.
The same week I was in in New York doing the Sojourner Truth unveiling.
Ah, excellent. Okay.
So yeah, it made a great flight, not have to go back to LA and back to, to Washington.
So she was an ancestor of yours then,
Yes,
and this is
yes.
during slavery when she was active as I presume an abolitionist and publishing
Yes.
this publication.
Her whole paper, Provincial Freeman. I have a copy of it. As I say, it was to inform them and to show them how to present themselves because the Caucasian Canadians were not too welcoming. The Dominion of Canada invited them
Uh-huh.
For reasons of their own to, as I say, get the economy going. They were great farmers and great. Some of them provincial were professionals, lawyers, what have you. So that not my grandfather, was like the chief, not the chief, but the head authority of the village I was born in.
And that village
North
is
Buxton.
Oh, okay, right. It was North Buxton. Okay. And so your grandfather was like a mayor or something of the town. Would that be fair to say?
You know, that the one they advised who sent letters to the government to ask for postmaster.
And so, how long were you in North Buxton?
My father, who was he had worked on, he had the highest IQ. There was a bigoted Dr. Tanzer who came to prove that we were inferior, and it backfired on him because my father has such a high IQ, and he was able to get work in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Oh.
And in that school, it was very progressive, that school, and they put me in advanced art classes.
Oh my goodness.
So I'd come back and say, there's not an inch of on the paper, not an inch of ground and at the bottom and an inch of sky at the top, and then stick houses in between. There's perspective and all that.
Yes.
Interesting one.
Wow. So these art classes you took at the elementary school level, junior high level? Oh, wow.
And they had an African-American music teacher who she put on plays for the auditorium, and I noticed that all these little white girls were getting costumes of flowers. They were flowers, and I was not given a thing. She said, "Artist, you're going to water all the flowers with this." Go around on the stage and water, and then they open up. So, more or less a star. Mm.
So basically, even though you were born in North Buxton, you grew up in Ann Arbor. Is that fair to say?
Until there was a black minister who told on us that we were there illegally.
Oh
He
no.
was in Windsor, just across the border. He'd get $5 a head. Why am I telling this?
Oh well, it's something that
Yeah.
happened, and
Yes,
if
yes.
that's just the truth. Yeah.
So we were
Ex-
forced to come back from Canada to
oh,
Canada.
oh,
But I'm very grateful because we ended up having a British education, and that seemed to work for my art career
hmm.
culturally.
So that second time after your family was sent back to Canada, having been in Michigan, approximately how old were you then? Was that you were high school
I
age
think I
roughly?
was 7 years old.
Oh, you were just 7. Okay. And then so that second stint in Canada, how long were you there? Was it throughout your childhood? So did you end up spending the rest of your childhood in Canada? Is that right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Now you mentioned that when you were in Michigan, you got art classes and so on. What drew you to art early on? What is your earliest memory of being attracted to drawing and sculpting and all the rest?
It's a gift that comes either like Grandma Moses, not until her 80s, but like me, I was born with it. And the idea, metaphysically, the coincidence of my mother naming me artist, all the other sisters had normal names.
Mm-hmm.
Mine was Artis, no T on the end.
Mm-hmm.
So she had a psychic experience to do that. All my life as an artist, I've been intrigued with God's gift to each person's reason for being here, and to be obedient to that. And that's been my line of thought throughout my life.
And so, were you able to take art classes in high school in Canada or elsewhere outside of the high school?
Oh, yes. In fact, I got a 4-year scholarship to Toronto, Ontario College of Art in Toronto. And the, the professors were English, would choose, sometimes they kept my work.
Oh, no kidding.
Yes, but there was that same prejudice. First instance, a publicist, just a student, put my photograph in the paper. There were 5 of us who were chosen to win the Queen's Award. It wasn't a beauty, it was an artist, popular artist
Mm-hmm.
contest. And I ended up getting that, and it was in the newspaper, but they didn't know the race thing confused them. So they wrote that I was dusky to avoid trying to
That's an
label.
interesting description. Yeah.
It was the Beaux-Arts ball that unveiled, and 2 students from Brazil. They had no prejudice like the rest, but were living in Canada, and they really made me feel special. But I was to have been given a portrait by the senior artist from the Ontario College of Art. He refused to paint me. He'd done all the other queens from the years before.
Oh no.
So
Little digs like that.
hurtful.
Yeah.
And I remember I normally played with a little blonde girl next door, and I went running next door to play with her. This is in Ann Arbor.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, I can't play with you because you're a nigger. Now, she had gotten that from some bigoted adult,
Of
don't
course.
know,
Yeah.
parents or whatever. That's how that Tear on America came about. I really poured that. First, first I was angry, then the tear, the disappointment,
Right.
and I made it a male. Uh, you'll see it in the
Oh yeah, sure. And we'll talk about that, by the way, a little bit later too,
yes,
in more
Tear on
depth.
the Face of America.
Yeah. Wow, that must have been very hurtful to have that kind of experience as a child, to be called an
Yes.
epithet and then to be regarded that manner. It sounds like a very hurtful thing. So you when you went to art school in Toronto, right?
Yes, and 4-year scholarship.
Yep.
That had, in fact, the little Irish, see, to show you that there are certain special individual Caucasians
Yeah.
who have no prejudice whatsoever. It had to do with my gift as an artist.
Mm-hmm.
And, Alice McCoy talked to the the president of the school. What are they called?
Principal or
Principal.
yeah.
The principal. Because it always went to either for law or for medicine. And that's the first time and the only time they gave it to an artist. So,
that's
and God works in wondrous ways. My sister, Carol, 2 years younger, at the same time was there to become a teacher of, they gave immigrants who came, I guess the educational board felt that because she was mixed, that she would be a more a welcoming teacher. So we lived together, and I'm just a country girl born on a farm. But art makes you exposed, at least for me, to the higher, more educational, intellectual aspects of the cultural process. Art being always respected, sometimes critiqued if you're too far in advance with your work.
right. So outside of art school, who would you say would be some key influences on you as an artist in terms of inspiration and technique and all the rest?
I was very involved with European artists and their images, and but you know that if you look back, there has never, to my knowledge, been a Canadian artist recognized in the world scheme of things.
Mm-hmm.
We had some great Caucasian art students. Tamilson, Canada recognizes them, but Canada is very much behind in the cultural promotion of artists, visual artists.
Mm-hmm. Would you say, because a lot of artists, African American and others, are kind of look towards, I guess France would be like a big magnet of artists and artists that are attracted to any like I don't know, any European artist that comes out of that area.
And Europeans have not got that prejudice. They honor artists, ethnic artists. We have names that you might know, accepted there.
Yeah.
Honored.
Yeah, like Matisse and Van Gogh and artists like that.
No, I'm speaking of ethnic artists coming from America, getting out of the prejudice here.
Oh yeah, and going over there,
living in.
Oh yeah,
Europe.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I know. Well, James Baldwin as an author did that, but I'm thinking of Buford Delaney. Buford Delaney went over there and so forth. Artists like that. Did you ever go to Europe to escape the racism you experienced here in the U.S. or in Canada?
Oh yes, I went, but I also went to South Africa because I belonged to a group who were first artists against apartheid.
Well, I recall.
They sent me to they paid for my way to go to South Africa.
Oh, fantastic!
With the condition that I asked what had been the experience for them of apartheid being overcome and Mandela. In fact, I stayed in a hotel that was right next to his compound.
Nelson Mandela's compound.
Yes, yes.
And I see where you were awarded.
There was a place called on Table Mountain where we were ushered up to receive the torch that went through the different countries they stopped in, and with the provision that I interrogate or ask the native, the Dutch people who had, caused the apartheid, what had been their experience since this whole upheaval caused by Mandela and others. And she said, "My son, I'm here to mourn my son who committed suicide thinking that the African-born people would kill them."
Oh my goodness.
Out of revenge, and yet it's ours is a love rate, I would say.
Oh yeah.
The Norse doers and love that they did. What is the word that starts with an R?
Reconciliation. Yeah.
Yes.
That was all set up. I was so impressed with that, right? The reconciliation.
We were there at that time.
Yeah.
Huey Massacre, the group I belonged to. Artists Against Apartheid.
Artists for a New South Africa.
Artists for a New South Africa, then.
Oh, I remember the
Artists
organization.
Against Apartheid first.
I remember both organizations.
Alfred Woodard.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, Alfred Woodard. Yeah, and I saw where you were given an award, I think, by Trans Africa. Is that true? Or you did a commission for them? I'm forgetting which. But Trans Africa, which was an organization established to combat the apartheid in South Africa, I believe. Am I right? Honored you in some way?
Yes, and I don't have a photograph. I took my camera. Did not have one of myself there, but I was photographing the group I went with. And there was a wealthy Texas girlfriend of mine from church, BJ DeVal, who asked if she could come along at her own expense. And I would photograph her on Table Mountain, and when I interrogated this large Dutch women, the Dutch were quite large boned. What had been her experience? And that's when she said that she thought because her son was afraid of the revenge.
That's really tragic. Obviously,
not happen.
Right. Exactly. What they expected didn't happen. And generally speaking, were the Dutch women or the folks that you talked with, were they receptive to you? Did they?
Yes, I had the pass as a reverend at this dinner table. The large white tent set up, and Becky was now the new president, and we went over to his table to have a picture taken with him, and sat at a table where they honored those people, Africans who stood out against apartheid at the risk of their own lives. Some of them were there, and I'm just so grateful to have been on that trip, because often we're not enlightened as to the sophistication of Africans. that whole meeting was very sophisticated.
I understand what you're saying, because the stereotypical
Yes.
image is just the opposite, right? I mean, well, I just wanted to shift a little bit now because as I'm sitting here, I'm remembering the first show of your work at my gallery way back in, I think it was 1989, in my first
Oh,
space on Main Street, the little small space. It's one of my fondest memories because you were kind enough. Here I am, a new gallery owner and a new dealer, and you were kind enough with your reputation to give me a chance in terms of being kind of a green art dealer. And and
listen, I knew about you because I used to go down to the beach and we'd come in and go down that
no,
main street.
yeah, yeah,
And there was no one there, but I peeked through the window and saw your gallery.
yeah.
And I was very impressed. I had no
Thank you,
idea of your relationship, about your older sister and
thank you.
older sister, right?
Older
Your
sister, yeah, 10 years older.
yeah. And at that time, Oprah came to my opening. Diane Carroll was very supportive.
Oh my God, she hosted it. It was a wonderful thing. I can remember
Yes,
it like it was yesterday. You know, as she
yeah,
hosted it, Oprah Winfrey showed up. Cecily Tyson, you mentioned her earlier, she was there,
yes, yes.
and the young woman who was a model for one of your sculptures, who was an Olympian. I'm forgetting her name. I remember her.
Renee Felton,
The reason I bring it up is
she's
only
the
because there was a
hurdler.
photograph of her at that
Oh,
very reception.
oh yes.
It's funny. It was like a trip down memory lane looking at some of those pictures from that
Oh,
reception. But that goes back. I think it was 1989. If it wasn't 89, it was probably 90. I opened the gallery in 88, so it wasn't long after I opened the gallery.
oh
So that was
yes.
wonderful.
She stayed in our studio, but on the condition that she would not have friends stay
Uh,
there
okay.
and come visit because we would go home, from Santa Monica to after my time working at the gallery.
Yes.
But I've known her throughout her lifetime, and she modeled for the hurdler, the three figures that
Yes.
I did in bronze.
Yes. So, artists, in that show back in 1989, it was almost all sculpture, but you also paint and draw as well, right?
Oh yes.
And do you have a?
And the reason you want to express or use the materials, um, for a delicate subject, I use pastel, and I found that I'm all over the place, but Diane Carroll asked me to do her daughter,
Uh huh.
a portrait of her, and she had this rich brown skin, and I wanted to find some way to give it the full color.
Mm-hmm.
So I invented a secret oil
Ah.
varnish to put on my brush for the stroke of the structure,
Uh huh.
just not to enhance uh,
Ah.
her full self, her
Yes.
color.
Yes. Excellent. Excellent. And
Uh,
so do you have a preference in terms of two-dimensional versus three-dimensional work, or are you equally in
no,
love with
each
both?
one demands a way of which material you use to portray.
Uh huh.
And sometimes I do use both for that same person.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as I say, Johnny, second one I did a portrait of him. Often they have a blue edge around the eye
Uh huh.
uh, when they're very dark, and I used color for him, but
I just love your portraits because it's more, to me at least, it's more than just a depiction of the person. It's some sort of intangible aspect to it. It's almost like you can capture their spirit in the portrait.
I'm so glad you said that because my whole study of the God created man in God's image. So trying to portray that quality either in the expression or in their being. I don't know of any other artist who's ever used it, and but it satisfies that need to get the full essence of that person.
And that to me is, I don't know, it's just something very special. It takes it beyond the technical skill and it's just to another realm, I think.
Yes, and I work on 3 levels: portrait, and the whole idea of doing known people who have sacrificed their lives to contribute to this war against bigotry, and in so many ways. When I did Archbishop Tutu, he had that delightful sense of humor, but at the same time, he was very bold and lived with death threats, all of that.
Oh,
and
yeah.
The group unveiled the portrait I did of him, of this group of artists against apartheid. And they said, well, have you met the artist on stage? And he said, no, I haven't had that opportunity. So my brother-in-law caught 2 shots of his coming over to give me a hug.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's very beautiful.
Just a light moment, but to learn, because he was invited by the group, Alfred Woodard, CCH Pounder is a member.
Oh, okay.
To give a talk, and honored his birthday. I've been so blessed to have met people who've made changes in our history, enlightening, daring, bold.
That portrait of Desmond Tutu, Bishop Desmond Tutu, was it sculpture or was it a?
2. I did 2 heads of him because of the serious nature and the other.
Ah, interesting. You get 2 different aspects of them. That's wonderful.
Yes.
Another sculpture that you did, I remember reading about, was of Sojourner Truth. And I thought it was brilliantly done. And at the same time, I saw it being presented, I guess, by then First Lady Michelle Obama.
Yes.
What was that like, by the way, to have done that key figure? Speaking of somebody who made sacrifices and
that kind of personage, I do a lot of research, and I found out that she was over 6 feet tall.
Oh, no kidding.
That she had arthritis in one hand. When I did drawings of her, her height impressed me. Her self-education. She was a businesswoman too. Did you?
I did not know that part. No.
How she purchased land.
Wow, that must have been really interesting to delve into her life that way. And the fact that you do that, to me, is impressive too. It's almost like you want to really know the person before you actually start modeling them in clay or draw them as a sketch or whatever.
Well, that's why I'm here. I'm to work on these 3 levels of consciousness that goes from never ordinary persons. As I say, my great aunt Mary Ann Shedd Carey, who was so bold with her writing, and
yeah, that was very brave for her to do at that time.
Yes,
exposing herself that way
was something else.
Yeah.
And I know that Cicely gave a speech at the unveiling, that ain't I a woman, I worked hard as any man, etc. So the whole unveiling was so, and there was a young boy choir.
Oh, really?
Why weren't you there?
I know. That's what I'm wondering. I mean, somehow I missed that, and I'm full of regrets.
It would have been nice. It would have been great to have had you.
Oh my God, I would have loved to have been there, and I'm sorry that I wasn't.
your family's funding
Oh,
created a building for uh, honoring heroes of our race. And so when she sat for me to do her portrait, she was also at the unveiling of the Sojourner Truth.
oh, I think I know who you're talking about, but all of a sudden I'm drawing a blank. I can't think of her name. I can see her face though.
But also the man who, John Smith, no, what was his name, who was beaten, the photographs of his being hit over the head in that.
Oh, John Lewis.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
He was at the unveiling, came up to me and um, wanted a picture taken with me.
Oh,
And so I later drew, when I found out who he was, because he just, I just knew I had to interpret my admiration for his life.
oh, absolutely. Speaking of sacrifice, I mean, he took, as you said, he took a severe beating crossing that
Dr.
Pettus Bridge.
Dorothy Height sat
Ah,
next
that's
to
it, Dr. Dorothy Height. Thank you, whoever brought that up. That's awesome, Dr.
Yeah.
Dorothy Height. Yes, and I think that's there she is, Dr. Height. Yeah, she's a remarkable woman.
Yes.
And so you were sitting next to her at the unveiling.
Yes, what she had sat for me. The seating was arranged, I'm
Yes,
sure.
of course, yeah.
And my sisters were there. I have a cousin, Ron Alexander, who was a professor at Stanford University.
Ah,
He came, and others from that little village in North Buxton. He, as I said, he had moved and lived just off campus of the university.
Oh, okay. Artis, I was just curious, how many siblings do you have?
My mother and father had 5 children, 1 boy, my brother Glenn. And part of the reason I think that I'm not shy about being in public was that our music teacher made us the singing Shreve sisters, like the Andrews sister, the King sister, whatever. So we sang on CFCO, the local Chatham station. And I was a second alto. I always felt my sister had too sweet a voice, as she was the lead. So the image was not sexy enough or not soulful enough.
Any of that recorded? I'd be curious to hear it if it's recorded.
Yes, I've never looked back on that. That was, we were only teenagers.
Oh, okay. Okay. Got it. Well, back to your work, Artis. I remember showing in my gallery some pieces that, and I just wanted you to maybe elaborate a little bit on it, but some of the pieces, these are sculptures, and it still had wire and some of the ceramic that's left from the process of casting bronze. And that wire and other material that was left over is deliberately left there and as a symbol. I was just wondering if you could help us understand.
So glad you asked.
What that means.
In my study of man emerging out of matter into spirit, I used those in pairs. I showed the finished black patina head along with the wired natural bronze as a pair. And that journey out of darkness into the light, I found a book called Science and Health with Key to Science and Health, Key to the Scriptures. And I wanted to convey that journey that we all take out of ignorance, out of sinful, like bigotry or whatever, the power of God lifting them up through suffering or change in character to the qualities spoken in Genesis of man being created by God in God's image. Now, what does that mean? So I had to find a substance that would portray the invisible, see-through kaolinite. Have you heard of kaolinite?
You know, not until I looked in the catalog of the work that you exhibited at California African American Museum. One of the pieces was made out of kaolinite. And
Yes.
Just for the listening and viewing audience, that's an acrylic material that's almost crystal clear, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah. The invisible qualities of a person. And that's why it was so important to me to arrive at that. It's a vertical image, and the journey upward. This is not the best one. I'll have a better one for you.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. That shows the whole progression from the.
Yes, and the body language of lying in like a homeless person, or not to make it too, and the power of God. This isn't the best one to show.
No, but that's still, I think it still illustrates the point, though.
That everyone's journey,
right,
out of material thinking, matter as our image, and into the spiritual realization of that man through body language. See how he's balanced?
Yes.
In this one, he's
more
groveling, say, on the ground.
Yeah.
The power of God's love, divine love, pulling him up to this final, and using the model I wanted to have was to be someone pure African, expressing generic man. And I went looking for this subject. I saw him on television running with, what was it? This baby sister of Michael Jackson.
Janet Jackson, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That began this whole desire to express that as our own journey, everyone's journey up and up to enlightenment. And I did my own journey as in a self-portrait of that, showing that we all have to come to that point where we exemplify and the man, woman that God created through the final at the top in the light.
Yes.
The others are in darkness and gray.
Yes.
Gradually arriving.
And that's why you use the kaolinite to portray that last aspect, the highest achievement, I guess, the spiritual achievement.
Yes.
And the model you used, if it's okay to say, right?
Oh, I found him in a book of photography, Herbert's book, and two separate books, one on all female, one on all male. There he was on the front page. I said, there's my generic man, but I had to get him to pose for me.
I was going to ask.
Every year we would go to dinner at Sidney and Joanna Poitier's home. And Anika had invited him. The teenagers would have a separate table. The mature ones would sit at Sidney and Joanna's table.
Yeah. And
he was coming in. Joanna had placed me at right angles at the end or front of Sidney's sitting at right angles at one end, and Joanna sees Jaimin coming through the door. and I said, uh, she called him daddy. He called her mommy, mama or something. Daddy, I want you to meet Jaimin Sue. And over my head, they shook hands, and there's the old guard and the new coming in.
Oh my goodness. What an opportunity.
And he hated modeling, but it was his livelihood. So his buddy, another male model, Caucasian, had neglected to find them a place to rent from New York to LA.
Mm-hmm.
So I found my husband inviting him to stay at our home.
And he accepted the invitation?
He stayed there a week, at least a week. He was so homesick for Benin. And when Jaimin, he's a great actor,
yes.
But in real life also, the mood in the home was just, and what is the word, to comfort him, he purchased a German dog. It was a one-man dog.
The dog just loved him, and that was it?
Big Rottweiler.
A Rottweiler, okay.
Yeah, handsome dog, but I love little soft, funny dogs. But he was welcome in our home because Jaimin was there. And
so for the benefit of our viewing and listening audience, we're talking about Jaimin Hansu, who's been in many movies, including Amistad, right?
yes.
So, yeah, he made a great model. I mean, those sculptures are outstanding.
He was sent as the youngest son to study business in Paris, in fact.
Oh.
And but to stay, he had to stay with his older brother, who was already in Paris. And the brother's fiancée resented his being there.
Oh, so no, caused the problem.
Out on the street, homeless, more or less. But
oh, no.
A great designers saw him.
Yeah.
And the rest is history. I mean, he did so well with modeling.
Mm-hmm.
As I say, he had come there to be a businessman.
Yeah.
The Hansu family is honored in their country. In fact, now he's, I won't get into his history, but he's doing well. And I understand back acting again.
Yeah, in fact, I saw a billboard advertising the latest movie he's in as I was driving down the freeway. So I applaud his success.
Well, he had a baby boy. He married Kamora Lee Simmons.
Oh, okay.
They got married and had a little boy. Jaimin said, "Mommy," he called me Mommy. I'm at the front door or whatever. He had surprised. He brought the little baby.
Oh, he brought the baby to show you.
I opened the door and he put the baby in my arms.
How beautiful. What a moment.
Highlights of my life.
That's wonderful. What a wonderful thing.
Yes.
So artists moving into sort of the future, what are you working on now? Are you still going down the same path with the sculpture where you're depicting the various aspects of
oh yes, currently I'm working on the 12-foot piece, 4-inch, 12-inch for Watts.
Okay. In Sankofa Park. Okay.
Yes.
Fantastic.
I'm currently working on it. Do you know that the first one, 12-foot, was commissioned by an organization in Atlanta, Georgia, outside Atlanta, was mysteriously stolen.
Oh no. It still hasn't turned up?
So this one is unique. It's the only one, and I'm working on it now. And with COVID, there's been a postponement. Yeah. So I have more time to execute it.
That sounds like a commission piece. Are you working on anything else, outside of the commission?
Well, I have such a large body of work that deals with so many different subjects or messages. But I feel that you know, that idea of dying with your boots on, I will die painting or sculpting. I wanted, maybe dare to interpret my impression of the Christ figure, Christ Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
but also I'm really, I feel a bit of guilt as an artist to not have been the full-time mother to my daughter. And I'm blessed to have her and my granddaughter. The three of us are living together here in
Oh,
Detroit.
that's fantastic. I'm happy to hear
Diane
that.
Coochie C. Goonybird, her father nicknamed her Coochie C. Goonybird. Was born in Women's Hospital here in Detroit. So I want to spend my last days here with them, enjoying them, and
that's a beautiful thing.
yes,
The three generations.
Hopefully, we can return to Canada and visit. It's right across the border, you know.
Yeah, sure. Windsor, right across from.
And the North Buxton.
Uh-huh.
People, they came to a great exhibition I had here in Detroit. Many pieces of my work, which we had shipped here ahead of our move out of Los Angeles to Detroit.
And while I'm happy that you're there, I do miss you being here. So I just want you to say.
Yes. Maybe I'll try to make it to the unveiling.
Excellent. If you do, I want to be sure to see you before you have to go back.
Yeah, you will be called.
I would appreciate that. And incidentally, do you still have relatives in North Buxton?
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay.
Many of them, some of them, American guys would come and marry Canadian girls because we were all virgins, they thought. At the time. Naive and all that good stuff.
Oh, and before I forget, by the way, I just wanted to say congratulations, a belated congratulations. I understand you got an honorary degree from Cranbrook Art Academy.
Yes. Oh, they went all out to show that they had reformed. That the Urban League they accepted my portfolio, then found out that I was an ethnic, and at that time, years ago, refused, but they were forced to accept me through the Urban League, and but students were of that same ilk that they were there and made my life so miserable that they sort of ruined my still life. Or when they lived on campus, I didn't, and I'd come back on the Monday and work was damaged, spoiled.
Oh no!
But the reception, they gave me my master's degree in art.
Oh,
it's right there.
Oh, awesome!
Artis Lane, Master of Fine Arts.
Excellent. Much deserved.
Yeah. And can I show you this?
Please.
Diane Carroll. I went to see her in a play, No Strings, in Detroit. It opened before it went to New York. And we went backstage, Dr. Lawson and myself, and I found myself inviting her to his home after, and she accepted. Because Detroit, she didn't know anyone there, and didn't feel at home.
Yes.
So I have photographs of her.
Oh, how nice!
Coming because her first agent had come that same night from New York to Detroit, and she had no place to take him. And we said, "Oh, come to his home." And we had a great time. And I have pictures of her showing how much she loved this first agent of hers, grateful to him. And I've known her ever since. And I introduced her she said, I don't know any people here. And I thought of Jackie Avon, who was formerly from New York. And I got them together, and I remember I'm in the back seat, the two of them just carrying on, just getting to know each other.
Excellent.
But we became like a trio in a sense.
That's
Uh,
beautiful.
I have no words for how blessed I was to know them in happy moments, and
Yeah, what a wonderful memory.
many, many happy moments. I didn't Diane come to your gallery?
Oh, absolutely. Multiple
Yes.
times. I mean, she hosted your show in the late 80s, but she had been back after that
Yeah.
for different shows and was a supporter of the gallery for sure.
Oh, and Cicely Tyson.
And
too.
Cicely Tyson too. Yeah, she came back multiple times. Yeah, that's the thing. I'm so glad you brought it up because you've been talking about how you met Jaimin, for instance, at Sidney Poitier's house, and you brought it up earlier as well. And so we would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge that Sidney Poitier passed away today.
Yes.
And
but we have to know that life triumphs over death.
yes,
There is eternal life. All our individual journeys to that everlasting life is different, and I have that comfort of knowing it. It's a science. Christian Science speaks of it. Proof that death does not overcome life. It appears to on this journey.
Yeah.
But the soul continues.
And in addition to that, I think his artistry, all the contributions he's made to our society and to the culture in general are immortal. They'll live on. Wonderful films.
I was just being obedient to that name I was given.
Yeah.
And the gift I was given. I just have had a wonderful, am having.
Right, exactly.
Life with all the things that had to be overcome, but the study has made it possible for me to survive.
Well, we all benefit from that too, artists. Your wonderful work teaches us. It gives us pleasure. It's just an overall gift to us. Your artistry is a gift to all of us.
Thank you.
Ability to take a look at it, and I encourage anybody who hasn't seen any of Artis' work to see it in person and as soon as possible. It's a wonderful thing. Artis, before we go, I was just wondering if you had any advice for any of the young artists out there who are trying to navigate their way through life as an artist and life as a person. Any advice?
Yes, for them, it's one thing to be impressed by other artists who've gone before them, but they must find time to quietly search to find out what their message through art will be, that they can contribute. That's first and foremost. My aunt was an artist, but she would copy other artists' works. And I thought, oh no, the whole thing is to individualize, and the motivation to stay centered to that. And you will arrive at a body of work that is unique.
I think that's sound advice. Basically, find your own voice and follow it.
Yeah.
Well, Artis, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast and for sharing your perspective. You have graced us with your presence. And again, I want to thank you so much. It's been an honor and a privilege to have you as a guest. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not gifted with speech, but I take it out in my hands and soul.
Well, we benefited in both respects. Thanks again. And for all of you out there, please don't forget to subscribe to Eric's Perspective.